You're listening to The Real Well Show with Kathy Fetke, the real estate investor's resource.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us here for our daily webinar. And I really want to acknowledge our team for working, as they're saying, late at night after they get the kids to bed and working on these PowerPoints. It's been a lot to keep up with, a lot of changes. Today's going to be a little more positive, so that's great. We're going to be looking at Cleveland, Ohio, and the property management plans there.
Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so we'll go to the next slide, and I'm just going to be giving a quick disclaimer that anything we talk about, I'm going to be talking about some things that you really should talk to your CPA or attorney about. I'll just be giving the highlights, and I'm not supposed to be giving legal or tax advice. So just take any information we talk about today and run it by your CPA or your attorney to discuss your specific situation. All right, so let's do the next slide. So we're going to do a full webinar on this very soon. I don't have the date yet. We have lots of webinars booked, and we got to squeeze this one in because this is super important. This is actually a game changer. The next two slides that I'm going to talk about, again, just overview, but this changes everything that we have been concerned about and not known about until now. So basically, what I did say in earlier webinars is the government is going to throw a lot at this, and that is exactly what we've got. So there's a chance people are going to be making more money, right, than they have in the past as a result of this. So the first stimulus that's going out to lots of people, most people, is if you make under $75,000 in adjusted gross income, you're eligible for that $1,200. And if you're married, filing jointly, and you're earning together less than $150,000, you're going to get $2,400 plus $500 for every dependent child. And head of household, if your adjusted gross income is up to $112,000, you're eligible for the $1,200, and again, the $500 for each dependent. Now, it's my understanding, and I don't know when this check is going to get to people, but it's something like 2 or 3 weeks. But that's kind of solves that problem we were wondering about May rent, right? Any thoughts on that? I mean, you know, that's been the concern we've all had, is how we think April people hopefully have their savings. You know, a lot of your properties have been B class, so they probably have some kind of savings to pay their rent. But I was more concerned about May, if they've lost their jobs, and here we know that they've got money coming in.
Yeah, this was the communication everybody was waiting for. And we're going to make sure, again, to translate that out to our tenants so they can understand what's coming and then they can budget for it.
Yeah, so it kind of brings us back to one of the first webinars we did with Detroit, where they had a pretty hard line of, look, the rent is due. And some people thought, well, that's not very compassionate, I guess, if somebody just lost their job. But also the landlords got to pay their bills, right? We're going to talk about that in a minute, but this kind of brings back to, well, you know, you do have money coming from the government and the rent is due. So again, we'll talk about that. This is the big one that's really important. We're going to do a full webinar on this. This blew my mind once I started to read it and try to understand it better, is the Small Business Owner's Guide to the CARES Act. Again, we're not going to go into it much detail. We're going to bring an expert on to do a full webinar. This is really important for our members to understand, for your own business and your own situation, and also understanding that the biggest concern we had is, what about all these people who just simply can't work right now because the restaurant's closed, or you know, the hotel's closed and they can't go to work. Like in Detroit, Ford was still paying their employees, but how long could they do that? Well, now there's this Small Business Owner's Guide. Now, it won't apply to Ford, but to many small businesses under 500 employees, this is going to be huge. Don't want to get into too much of it here. I want to have an expert bring it on, but it's my understanding. Don't hold me to it. Don't rely on this information. But what I'm understanding is that you can get a small business loan that can cover your employees for 2.5 months salary. And if you don't fire anyone, or you hire people back who were laid off, then there's a chance that loan will be forgiven. So look into it. really important. We have a lot of members at Real Wealth who are dentists and doctors, and they have their own businesses. And this is really something to look into. It's a really big deal, really big deal. So we'll be going over that later. This is going to help our tenants who may get rehired. We may not see that 10 million layoffs, you know, and people filing for unemployment because they may not be unemployed based on this. So again, huge game changer. We're going to go in detail. Can't wait to do that webinar. And we're just setting that up now, but we're going 100 million miles an hour trying to keep up with all these changes. But this is really, you know, with the hope, I think the hope is that we'll be through this in a couple of months as we work on containment in the different cities. And this is, again, a topic you'll be talking about, is what a great job Ohio is doing on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So next slide. Let's find out about you.
All about me. Yeah, so I'm the Cleveland area provider for your clients, Kathy. I have been doing full turnkey for you guys for 5 years now. It's hard to believe it's been that long. And previous to that, I helped service your clients under the BRRRR strategy here in Cleveland. And that was dating all the way back to like 2011. And I bring that up because I keep saying this is not my first rodeo / crisis. So we were obviously selling properties during the foreclosure crisis when our market was hit especially hard. And so it's important that we have data that while this is a totally different type of crisis, that our rents have always stayed commensurately high, even when our prices were kind of going up and down. But I'm also part owner of the management company, which is housed out of my building. And we are one of the largest residential property management companies in the Cleveland market at just under 600 doors. And I'll be talking a little bit about our property management's response to all this, their communication to your owners and to the tenants, and bringing some important information on what we expect will be our April collections.
Awesome.
So I want to back up though, and I do want to remark on what you said about Ohio's response. Our governor, Mike DeWine, has really set the tone. He's aggressively escalated our state's response to the coronavirus and has received, you know, national attention as a result. He was one of the first people, we were one of the first states in the nation to close our schools. And then we saw other states follow suit. And also to close restaurants and bars, public gatherings. So we are really hopeful that that's going to translate into lower numbers for our state. At least right now, it seems like we have a much flatter curve than other states like New York and even Detroit.
Yeah, that was really shocking. We had shared that too. So I know this slide is kind of talking about what you did from the downturn, what you learned. And I do want to mention that I knew you, you know, before you had your company. I actually bought a property when you and Tim were working in another turnkey company. And then we, of course, scooped him up, and then he helped you start your own. Mm-hmm. And he's been working with you. He's in Cleveland too. Tim is our director of property teams, and, you know, work going around the country trying to find great teams. And you're right there in Cleveland. It's his hometown. Yeah. The property I bought through you guys before you had your own company has just, I know this isn't typical, but it has stayed rented for 6 years. Same guy, and he's in the medical field. And you know, it's been, personally have a great experience with Cleveland. I was one of the first people to say this city is really on the rebound. You know, I love finding a city, I hate to say this, but a property or even a city or metro area that's kind of down in the dumps, but with lots of potential of coming up. And that was you guys. You know, yeah. I could see the potential, and it's what has continued to grow. And to see that you guys were really on the front line of all this chaos is it's really incredible. But coming back to, you know, what you were doing higher end flips, Class A, then you kind of switched into affordable housing. When did that happen and why?
Well, I mean, that was, you know, 2006-ish, right? We were at the height of the market and everybody was flipping. And I don't know, no one knows what to expect, right? In 60 days, our retail market was red hot and really still is. It's, underlying this virus. So I don't know if this is going to be our long-standing strategy. It is right now that we're moving out of the higher end flips and out of Class A and focused on affordable housing. So for us as a turnkey provider, we are going to be in that 80 to 120K range on a single family and 100 to 200K on a 2 to 4 family property. And that's the range that I've kind of always operated in. We know that there's a great price to rent ratio in that range where we've always consistently been anywhere from 1 to 1.5% in rent to our purchase price. So that's just what we're going to target right now. No new construction right now, no high-end flips. Really focusing on buying right. It's all on the buy, right? I need to be able to deliver the right prices to my turnkey buyers so they're getting the cap rates that they need. We're really focused right now on direct to seller acquisitions. Sadly, we think this is going to create a scenario where there are going to be people that are in a distressed situation that are ready to unload their house. And so we're going direct to those sellers right now and trying to create really great buying opportunities so we can obviously rehab the properties and sell those as turnkey. And I think, the other thing that we learned through the last downturn is just communication. The vast majority of the people that we work with are on the West Coast or they're in another state. And as we spoke last week, what you guys are experiencing in California is really different than what we might be experiencing in our market. And we want to make sure that you can understand it on a ground level perspective, what's happening with our tenants, with our available inventory, our price points, and just what we're seeing overall.
Great. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so what are you seeing in your market, and what one thing that, I was like an aha moment, well, Cleveland is a hub for medical, right? So what are you seeing there?
This is one of those times that you feel really thankful to have the Cleveland Clinic in your backyard. I think on the next slide we'll talk a little bit about that, but it was just ranked the #2 hospital in the world. And we have University Hospital here as well. We have Health Tech Corridor. So not only do we have a really strong hospital system, but we have a lot of research and lab space going on. We have drive-through testing sites. Both hospital systems have been really innovative in turning around the testing response times for coronavirus. On top of that, University Circle, which is connected to Health Tech Corridor, is our eds and meds area. So you basically have nurses and doctors being schooled and training right on site. So it gives a great deal of confidence. I like to say that I tried to create from my experiences previously as much of a bulletproof model as I possibly could. And I'm always saying on my webinars with you that I'm hyper focused on the areas that we buy properties in. We're not just buying for cash flow. We're not buying places where people have to live. We're buying where people want to live. And I've made one of my target focuses in acquisitions around the hospital systems. So as you know, close to where you own your property, we're buying stuff a mile away from Cleveland Clinic. On the west side of town where Metro Health Hospital is, they're doing a $1 billion expansion project. We're scooping up properties all around that area. So to me, that model has been bulletproof, and we're seeing that that's worked out overall for our sales and for our tenants. The retail market is still strong here as well. Real estate, thankfully, is considered essential. Well, we do have a shelter-in-place order here in Ohio because we are an essential service. People are still selling properties. They are still showing properties. Properties can still be inspected. They can still be appraised. As you know, we have a little caveat here on our east side suburbs. We have what's called the point of sale, which is a city mandated inspection process. That's one of the only.
Well.
You know well.
Yep.
If you invest here, you know it, even though we try to do all that heavy lifting for you. So that's really like the biggest slowdown that we've seen. The cities are not altogether closed, but they're delayed in their communications. So That's the only thing that's really holding us up in the point of sale cities is getting our inspections scheduled and performed and getting our transfer certificates.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mentioned this slide, obviously. We talked about DeWine's response. We have a great deal of confidence in him. He's got a lot of national attention. Again, we're really hoping that this will translate into lower numbers overall. And then, of course, Cleveland Clinic, I think this just came out a week or two ago, that they're the #2 hospital in the world.
In the world. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Do you have a slide on the testing?
I don't think so, no. I know they have drive-through testing downtown. I don't know if University Hospitals does. I believe that they do, but I know Cleveland Clinic, at least early on, was pretty revolutionary in their turnaround time on the results of their testing. But since that time, other hospitals have kicked in with even quicker testing.
But they were really on the forefront there initially, and that's, again, it was people often, I know Missy says, oh, what happens in Ohio is like 20 years later or whatever than other, but this time you guys were like on it,
as it relates to medical and research, maybe fashion.
Yeah. So I mean, and I'm hoping that does end up resulting in you guys being less affected.
Yeah, we do as well. This is a time where we're thankful we have a lot of space, and as trivial as it sounds, we have the Metro Park system here. It's called the Emerald Necklace here, and I want to say it's like 1,200 acres of Metro Park system that surround the city. And when you have a shelter in place and only essential businesses are operating, it's been a wonderful outlet for people here. It's been a wonderful outlet for my family as well. So this slide, what's the short-term outlook for your tenants, employers? We see that businesses are hiring. They're changing the way that they're doing business. We've changed the way that we're doing business. Our property management company is actually working remotely, sans maintenance, obviously. But there are businesses that have had to close or scale back, obviously, but they're also being innovative in the way that they're conducting their business. So Cleveland Clinic is hiring, obviously. University Hospitals is hiring. The Amazon Fulfillment Center, right by where your property is, Kathy, they're hiring. We see all the Uber Eats, Instacart, Rite Aids, drug marts, grocery stores, shipping facilities. All of those places are hiring right now.
Wow. Oh, I love this. Yeah, when we talked earlier, you said that you had sent out your property management company had sent out a really good letter, and I wanted to put it up here as an example of that really other property management companies should use. That this is one of the things I love about what we've been doing and what Tim has been heading up is bringing all the property managers from around the country to learn from each other. And this is a great example of what other people can copy. So if you would just kind of go over what this says.
Yeah, sure. I'm really proud of the staff. They've done a really great job getting information, as I said, out to your owners, out to the tenants. We're making that a weekly priority. Now that we know what's happening with the government, when everyone can expect our unemployment insurance and the stimulus checks, we're going to make sure that correspondence goes out to people. We can't just assume that they know it. Yeah, it's not going to be easy for me to read this. It's a little blurry on my screen, but I thought, yes, I'll do my best. But basically what they're saying is many of our property owners are just like you. They're average people that were relocated and wanted to keep their home. They inherited a house from their grandma or a landlord that still has a mortgage. They are unlikely to be able to afford waiving your rent unless the government waives their mortgages. They are not trying to be mean. They are really decent people and will help as much as they can. Believe it or not, they actually worry about all of you, which is true. We've had owners reaching out concerned about tenants. We wanted to make sure to convey that to them. Rental income is what pays for utilities, maintenance, trash collection, laundry operations, security, property insurance, property taxes, mortgage payments, amenities, grass cutting, staff, vendors, emergency maintenance. Rent is still due on April 1st. It will be considered late after April 5th, and notices will be posted on April 10th. If you have proof of your income has been adversely affected by the coronavirus, please be proactive in reaching out. And I thought that this message was really important because it kind of, it gives a voice to the property owners. It lets the tenants know that, the person that owns the property they're living in may be just like them.
Yeah. Love to see. I look forward to seeing the results of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we've gotten some really positive feedback, and we will continue to correspond with everybody weekly.
Great.